Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar concerning the Friendly Nations visa, the changes that have been approved recently. Welcome, everyone. We again thank you. My name is Ricardo Cambra. I am the partner at CLD Legal in Panama City. Any questions that you have concerning the material that and the presentation, you can write on the chat. You can write it there, and I'll be answering all your questions when we finish. So let me then share the screen so we can start immediately with the presentation. Very well. Today we are hosting this webinar concerning the Friendly Nations visa, as I mentioned, and the recent changes, requirements, and what are your options if you're not able to meet the deadline. But let me refer to a bit about CLD Legal. We are a law firm in Panama. We have been operating in Panama for 14 years already. Personally, I have 22 years of experience as an attorney in Panama. And over the years, we have been able to expand. Now we have offices in not only in Panama, but also in Guatemala and in Madrid, Spain. We're also members of a network that comprises more than 345 legal firms worldwide in more than 100 countries. So we can basically represent your interest in all these countries, as we do here in Panama, with the same principles, fundamental principles of ethics, of professionality. Our areas of practice in Panama are basically corporate law, real estate, state planning, asset protection, immigration, and intellectual property. Presently, we have a program that is addressed to or directed to entrepreneurs that are based in Panama or even abroad that want to start a business here in Panama. That program is called Elitia. You can go to our social media and you will find all the information there concerning that particular program. We're always posting new materials concerning this program and tips and advice for entrepreneurs in our social media. So follow us. We'll give you our social media handles when we finish the presentation. So what's happening with the Friendly Nations visa? Or let's review first, what are the requirements under the current the law, the current regulations? Well, right now, the current regulations allow you to obtain a permanent residence in Panama if you are a citizen of one of the countries that Panama considers under this particular law as a country that is friendly to Panama, and there's a list of about 50 countries, right? Mostly European, Western European countries, Canada, US, a few Latin American countries, and a few Asian countries like Hong Kong, for example. One of the main requirements is to open a personal bank account in Panama, where you have to make a deposit of $5,000. Okay. Another one of the requirements is to open a company in Panama, and claim that it will be used for business, to invest in the Republic of Panama. Or you can claim that you have a job in Panama. Suffice to say that you have to prove that you actually have a job here in Panama. So all the documents pertaining to that have to be submitted with the application. Another of the requirements is to submit a certificate of no criminal record. This certificate has to be issued by a federal authority. Let's say, for example, in case you're a U.S. citizen or you have been a resident of the United States, that certificate has to be issued by the FBI. In case you're a Canadian, the certificate of no criminal record has to be issued by the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and so on and so forth. So the equivalent of those authorities in your country have to issue this certificate. Now, also, this certificate has to be legalized before it arrives to Panama. It has to be legalized with the apostille, which is basically a legalization that is based on an international treaty called the Hague Convention. In this case, Canada is not a member of that particular treaty, so you have to legalize the certificate of no criminal record at you have to go through a process where you have to certify the document, then by the issuing authority, then you have to legalize that stamp by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and afterwards by the Panamanian Consulate in Canada. And once that document arrives in Panama, then we have to take it over to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Panama to authenticate the signature of the consulate in Canada. Whereas with the apostille, those countries that are members of the apostille, which are quite a few of those, for example, the US is a member of the apostille. You can get the apostille in the US at any Secretary of State office. And the process is simpler. You only need to certify the document with the apostille, and that is perfectly valid to be used here in Panama. Now, under the current regulations, you file the application, and during the processing of the visa, immigration will give you a temporary residence permit, valid for 6 months. But the visa, once it's granted, will give you a permanent residence. It typically takes about 3 to 4 months to process a visa. I believe that because of the changes are coming into force in August, that a lot of applications are going to be filed, are going to be submitted. Therefore, the processing times are going to vary significantly. So I would suggest that the time frame for processing a visa will be very close to the 6 months. In any case, this visa, under the current regulation, allows you to have a permanent residence right away. After it's processed, if it's approved, it will give you permanent residence right away. You can actually go to the civil registry with a letter that the Immigration Service provides you and obtain a Panamanian ID card, which will indicate that you are a permanent resident here in Panama. So what's going on? What are the changes? What happened? New changes to this visa were approved on May 20th. And the decree, the executive decree that approves this particular visa, the amendments to this visa, will come into force 90 days after the publication of the law, of the executive decree. That said, the new regulations state that in order for you to be able to obtain the residency through this particular visa, you have to have a job in Panama, okay? Or you have to purchase a property, real estate, any type of real estate for a minimum of $200,000. You can finance the purchase in Panama. Of course, getting financing here in Panama is not easy, but it's not impossible either. Again, you have to obtain the certificate of no criminal record, the same as I explained before. And the difference is that now your permanent residence will not be granted for 2 years. So when you file the application, if you comply with the requirements, the new requirements are going to enter into force after August 20th. Immigration will give you a temporary permit for 2 years, valid for 2 years. So you can live in Panama, okay? That's no problem. But you cannot request your permanent residence only after 2 years. Of course, the application, you can submit it a little bit before those 2 years, but that is the big difference between the current regulations and the ones that will come into force later. And of course, two of the requirements that I mentioned before, getting the bank account and depositing $5,000 and opening a company. Those two are completely eliminated now. So there's no possibility of doing that after August 20th. So August 20th, or let's say August 19th, is the deadline. I mean, you won't be able to submit an application under the current regulations with the current requirements after August 19th. Okay? However, because there will be a lot of applications being submitted and you have to comply with getting a bank account, getting the company form, et cetera, plus if you're coming with your family, let's say you want to apply with your wife, you want to apply with your husband, and you have children, you have to get all the paperwork for them as well, right? So all family members that are 18 years of age or older have to obtain the certificate of no criminal record. If you are going to add children to your application and your spouse, you have to demonstrate that you are married. So you have to, of course, provide a certificate of marriage. You have to demonstrate that the children are yours. Therefore, you have to submit birth certificates. And all of those documents have to be properly legalized, either with the apostille or by a Panamanian consul. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do. So if you're interested in doing this, we strongly recommend that you start right away because I do know that in Canada, it takes a couple of weeks to get everything together. Same in the US and in other countries. So start right away if you're interested in getting this, getting into the friendly nations visa before the deadline. Particularly our firm will not be taking new clients for this particular visa after August 1st, meaning we have to submit an application for new clients at least by August 5. We don't want to take any risks for clients that are not able to comply with all the requirements. We do have to review everything even before the clients arrive into Panama. We want to review all the paperwork, we want to make sure that everything is done correctly, that all the legalizations are there, that there are no errors or mistakes on the documents, et cetera, et cetera. So you won't make the deadline. What are your options? So Panama issued in October of 2020, created a new type of visa that provides a permanent residence in Panama. That's called the VIP visa or the red carpet visa. This is particularly addressed to any qualified investor of any country. There are certain extra requirements for certain citizenships, especially those that Panama considers high-risk citizenships, such as, for example, the Indian citizenship, the Pakistanis, Iranians, Iraqis, maybe a few Asian countries. They have to submit a pre-application at the consulate in Panama to be able to be approved to travel to Panama. And you have to disclose on that application whether you're going to be submitting a visa to reside in Panama or if you're coming for tourism. So it has a different process for certain citizenships. So please do not hesitate to consult with us if you have any doubts. So this red carpet visa requires an investment of $500,000 in either real estate or an investment through a brokerage house here in Panama, or you can open a fixed term deposit for a minimum amount of $750,000. You do have to keep the investment in the country for a minimum of 5 years. And again, the same requirement as before, the certificate of no criminal record. I won't dive into that again because I've already did mention it twice. But if you have any questions, please do ask on the chat, and I will be happy to answer when we finish. Continuing with the visa, the VIP or the red carpet visa, what are the advantages of getting this one? So yeah, right now, this particular visa, you can apply even if you're not in Panama. That is contrary to the to other type of visas, including the friendly nations visa. That's something that you can do with this particular red carpet visa. You can do this. You can apply even if you're not in Panama. Okay, you have to hire an attorney, of course. You have to give power of attorney to a lawyer. You have to either enter into a promise to purchase agreement to buy real estate, or you have to make a purchase already, or open a brokerage account or a fixed term deposit. A lot of people that are filing or that are investing in this visa are doing the real estate because it's not particularly necessary for you to be here in Panama, whereas to open a fixed term deposit, banks in Panama are quite fixed on seeing the client here in Panama, although it's not entirely impossible for you to open the account remotely. Certain requirements or several extra requirements will be needed, but it's certainly doable. Another advantage is that until next year, October 2022, you can invest in real estate only a minimum of $300,000. Okay, so that is another advantage that this red carpet visa provides. And another one is that your permanent residence is issued in 30 days. This application is actually submitted at the Ministry of Commerce. They have created a special, let's say, window of attention where you file the application. The client, of course, or the applicant doesn't have to be in Panama, but it will have to come to Panama. Once in Panama, the client has to do what is called a affiliation process or a registration process before the immigration service, but that's about it. But most of the application can be submitted or can be processed while the client or while the applicant is not in Panama. So this is very interesting for clients that have difficulties travel to Panama, whether it's for because they're working or their businesses and they don't have enough time to come over to Panama to do these particular applications. So this is very interesting. Right now, as I mentioned, there is this investment in real estate for $300,000, until 2022, when the amount will be increased to $500,000 as minimum. So what are your other options? Panama also created recently, in the month of May 2021, a digital nomad visa. Okay, this is interesting for people that are in the digital nomad business, where they are traveling all over the place. They don't stay at any given time in any given place for a great number of days a year. So this permit, any foreigner that's operating under a contract with a foreign transnational company or is an independent worker can apply to this visa. The work, of course, must be done in telework mode. So basically, the person has to be working from their computer, from their home, or from a small office in Panama. And all the work has to have effects abroad. You cannot attend, let's say, clients that are based in Panama or businesses that are based in Panama. As soon as you do that, then the application can be, or the visa can be immediately revoked. You also have to prove that you receive income from a foreign source, not a Panamanian source, for a minimum of $36,000 a year, or the equivalent in any other foreign currency, euros, Canadian dollars, etc. Other considerations concerning this particular visa: you will not be required to obtain a work permit. The income being from a foreign source will not be taxable by the Republic of Panama. Now, this is my personal opinion. I do believe this is something that will happen. It's not regulated. The government hasn't said anything about this particular issue, but typically when you are doing work and you are attending from Panama businesses, or you're managing businesses, or you're managing your investments that have effects abroad, and you receive a compensation for that, it's not taxable in Panama. Therefore, my opinion is that this income will not be taxed by the Panamanian authorities. Now, this permit is temporary. It will only be granted for 9 months, and you can extend it for 9 additional months. That's it. So 18 months in total. So that is interesting also for clients that are looking, for example, to establish a tax residence. You can establish a tax residence in Panama because Panama considers you a tax resident if you spend more than 183 days a year in Panama. There are other considerations that will have to be analyzed on a case-by-case basis, but this particular visa will be able, in my opinion, because of the time frame and whether we can prove that you have the number of days that you are a tax resident in Panama. And that is useful if you are, for example, applying for the benefits of a double tax treaty that Panama has with other countries, or if you want to prove to another country that you're a tax resident in Panama, or let's say you want to prove to a foreign financial entity, whether a bank or a broker, that you have your tax residence in Panama. So that's very useful. So other visas available. What are my other options? You have the pensionado or retiree visa. This is very popular, of course, with retirees. So what you need to do, basically, you need to prove that you have a pension for life of a minimum of $1,000. And if you're going to add a dependent, spouse, children under 18, or up to 25 years of age, if they are still studying, you have to add $250 for every dependent. If you have purchased a real estate in Panama for a minimum of $100,000, then the immigration service will consider a minimum pension of $750 per month. You can't work. That's one of the caveats of this particular visa. You can't work. The law that created this visa back in 1987 expressly indicates that it is forbidden for pensionados or retirees that apply for this visa to work. With some exceptions. Let's say you want to invest in a business in Panama, you have to obtain a prior authorization by the Ministry of Labor. And if you, for example, provide a service that is not available, or you have a skill that is not available in Panama, no one in Panama, no Panamanian provides it, you can and are able to provide that service or that skill to the government. Okay. And of course, you can be a member of the board of those businesses that you have invested in, but you can't work. There's some lawyers out there that argue that you can't work. There's a permit that allows you to do it. Yeah, I am not particularly of the opinion that you can, because this law clearly indicates that you're forbidden to work and dictates the exceptions to that rule. But of course, in Panama, anything can happen. So the door may be open there, but it is up for interpretation, in my opinion. What other visas are available? There are other visas such as the self-economic solvency visa. This one allows you to invest $300,000 in minimum, either in real estate, or you open a fixed deposit or term deposit in Panama, or you can do a combination of both. Always that the investment is of a minimum of $300,000. Okay, you have to keep the investment for a number of years, 3 years to be exact. You can purchase the real estate using a private foundation, always that you can prove that that you are the founder or you're a beneficiary of the foundation. As the Friendly Nations visa new requirements that will come into force in August, this one provides a 2-year temporary residence, after which you can apply for permanent residence. Hence the reason why you have to keep the investment for 3 years. Okay, and work permits are available for this type of visa because it will give you permanent residence eventually. And of course, there is a work permit that allows permanent residents to work. So that's the situation in a nutshell. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please do it now. Here you can find or take notation of our website, our email address, and the handles are of our social media in Instagram, in Facebook, and LinkedIn. I will stop sharing now. In any case, we are going to send all the participants today an email with all the information. So if you have any questions, please just, you can either write it on the chat here, please. If there are no questions, then okay, here we have a question. How long will it take to get a Panama passport? Well, that's a good question. To be able to get a Panama passport, you need, or you have to apply for the Panamanian citizenship. And that can only happen after you become a Panamanian permanent resident, okay? For 5 years. So after you have a resolution from the Immigration Service that says that you're a permanent resident, then you have to count 5 years to be able to get or apply for a Panamanian citizenship. And for that to happen, of course, you have to prove that you have been in Panama, you have been residing in Panama for the past 5 years. You will have to pass an exam where they will ask you questions about, geography, history. They will ask you questions about, you have to know the language, of course, you have to learn Spanish. And of course, an application has to be submitted. It will go through the process. You'll do the exam. If you pass the exam, then the application will continue its process. Bear in mind that naturalizations or citizenship process are approved and published on the official gazette after the president of our nation signs it. So it takes a while. Not everyone is up to it. Not everyone wants to go through that process because it does cost additional funds, additional money. And of course, it takes about 2 or 3 years to process the application. So there you go. Yeah, it costs additional money. Does it cost additional money? Yes, it does. It costs additional money. In terms of legal fees, in terms of expenses, you don't have to make an additional investment in the country. Once you're a permanent resident, that's it. You're able to comply with the requirements, you can file the application, but you don't have to make an investment. For example, like in other countries where you can obtain a citizenship by investment. Okay. All right. So I don't see that we have any other questions here. Therefore, I'm just going to have to. There are no more questions here, I'm being told. So we thank you. Thank you very, very much for your participation today. We will be giving more webinars about our immigration services and the visas available. We will go more in depth with other types of visas, like the digital nomad visas, like the pensionado visas. We will be announcing those webinars soon. Please follow us on our social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And as I mentioned, we will send you an email with the presentation so that you have it. And please do not hesitate to ask us any questions concerning any type of visa in Panama. As I said, we also do real estate, corporate law, we do intellectual property. We have a special program for entrepreneurs in Panama, either foreigners or citizens of Panama that want to initiate or start a business. So please do not hesitate to contact us. And thank you again for participating. Have a great day. And thank you very much again.